I'm using a 12 volt 20 amp hour gel cell battery. Another little toy from Amazon. Great for a whole bunch of different off-grid projects. And let's see what my battery's at. Okay, so 13.2 volts is where it's sitting right now. And what I'm going to do is, this is the converter. It's a DC to DC converter. It takes 12 volts in and puts 19 volts out. The DVR that I'm using actually takes 19 volts, center pin positive. And if I haven't mentioned it before, the reason for using a DC to DC converter is because it's looking for 19 volts DC. The DVR did come with a wall wart sort of thing. Plug it in and it puts out 19 volts. But in the motorhome, I have lots of 12 volts, and unless I am plugged in to shore power or running my generator or running my inverter, I don't have 120 volts available, and I don't want to have to leave an inverter on all the time just to power this thing up. So it makes more sense to just go ahead and run it off of DC. So let's go ahead and wire this thing up. So that will be my input. There's my output. And if I did this right, I'll have 19 volts coming out. If I did it wrong, I'll have smoke coming out. 19 volts on the button. And this thing's rated for up to 190 watts, is well beyond what I should need. That's 10 amps. So I will wire up a barrel plug. This is what plugs into the back of the DVR. So that'll be connected to the output. I just need to make sure that center pin is positive. And I'm a big proponent of the Anderson style connectors. That's these. Nice thing about these is if I need to disconnect the house batteries or something, and I still want to be able to power the thing up, I could grab one of my batteries like this that's already got an Anderson connector on it and plug it in and run it from its own separate battery. These pins come different size. different sizes. These are 45 amps, these are 15 amp, and these are 30 amp. And what that really boils down to is the size of the barrel that the wire goes into. So here's a 15, here's a 30. All three of these will plug into this housing. There are different size housings for different current capability. Some of the ones I use are 175 amp. I'm using those on my solar setup, and those work incredibly well as well. You can solder these on, and I had done that for many years before I got one of these crimpers. And this is a dedicated crimper for this connector. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but they're labeled 15, 30, and 45. There is a stop block on the back. So the technique is you essentially just push it in. It's ratcheting, so you have to go all the way through the compression before it'll let go. That's what it looks like when it's done. And there we go. There's a little metal tab inside these, and this is not the conductor, this is actually a spring. And what will happen is these will slide in, and where that spring is, this will overlap and hook, and you can't pull it back out without getting underneath the edge of this lip, pulling it up off of the spring, and then pulling the wire back out. So you can reuse these over and over if you wish. I buy bags of 100 at a time. This one's already put together, but basically here's how you do it. Is you can configure these in all different ways. You can see there's little grooves on these, so there's a corresponding notch on one, so you can have them do all kinds of odd configurations so that you can't accidentally plug something into it. So if I put it together like this, it's possible to connect it like this. If I reconfigure it and I stack one over the top of the other, there's no possible way to get these to lock into one another. And you're not limited to only two conductors. You can have a whole block and wire it up however you want. Click, click. Okay. So that one's wired up, so I'll go ahead and do the other one. That's it, all locked together. That's now wired up. It's got screw mounts, so I'll be putting that in the cabinet. Yeah, I know this isn't kosher. But considering my application, this will be fine. These wires are a little too skinny for these connectors. So I doubled them up. Don't do as I do. Okay, the one with the stripe was a ground, which is that one. Set a plug in just like that. I do make a little tool for this, but I don't find it works near as well as a scratch awl. An eyeglass screwdriver works pretty good too. Okay. Let's put this back over to volts. Turn the buzzer off. Get some of my tools out of the way. Okay, so I should have center pin positive, 19 volts coming out. $19 volts. Okay, so that's wired up right. Okay, the foo-foo cable I'm using right now has an RCA style connector on it, and I need to be able to hook to a BNC, and I don't have the exact adapter with me, so I went through my parts bin and I think I can get there. And this is just for testing purposes only. Okay, let's go ahead and hook 19 volts up. Let's see what happens. And that is normal. That's letting me know that the power was interrupted on the DVR. It's powering up, that's a good sign. And I might upgrade that fan. That's a little noisier than I would like. So it is seeing the primary hard drive. And it's letting me know that I don't have any video inputs on any of the 4 channels. This is essentially what I'm going to have over on the left side of the dash as I'm driving. I could make this a full screen. I already have a screen in the center of the dash, but if you're a driver, you have to kind of crank your neck over to be able to get a good view of it. This one will be much more in line with my vision as I'm driving. I will probably leave it in this 4-channel configuration like this. I could pick 1 channel, or I can pick 1 and 2 channels, but the idea is that I will have the front camera, the rear camera, the left camera, the right camera, so I'll be able to see all of the cameras all of the time, which I really prefer, because the other one, you only see a left or right side camera when you engage the turn signal. I would rather be able to look before I turn on my turn signal, so this has some other advantages. I will get the remote and program this thing up. It's typically meant to be connected through the network hardwire connection down here. There's a LAN connection, and then you can access this with software and go in and set the clock and everything, but I'm not going to have this connected to a network. I'm not going to bother putting one on the RV. It's just of no real benefit to me right now, because we're traveling so much and going so many different places, and I don't want to have to sign up for an expensive service that I won't use very often. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. The next thing I will do is go ahead and drill the holes, wire up the converter box with the BNC connectors. Go put this thing in the RV and do a bench test out there with the existing cameras and see how well it performs. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.